It's all heating up now, with the World Cup in full swing and pre-season fixtures on the horizon. It's time to start talking about competitive rugby again. Let's start the show. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Interpro Show, your home for all things Irish rugby from across the professional and amateur men's and women's game in Ireland. I'm your host, Kean Scully, and as always, I am joined by Ulster Adam, Limerick Ben, and I've come up with Dublin David. I know it's cliched, I'm sorry, but look, it could be worse. It's still not as worse of a naming rhyme scheme as like J.K. Rowling or something. But, anyways, moving on very, very swiftly. Gentlemen, you're very welcome back on. Tonight we are going to talk about Connacht. Stuart Lancaster is their new head coach. They had three Lions for the first time over the summer. They will have Mac Hansen back, hopefully fit for the whole year. They've got an abundance of young talent, some of which capped for the first time of the summer as well. And Adam, I'll start with you just on Connacht specifically, but just in general. We're at that point of the season. You know, the nights are closing in. NFL is on the screens. Rugby is coming back on. There's a little bit of a nip in the air, and you know goddamn well if you went to your local sideline, you'd be frozen after 10 minutes. It's new season. It's very exciting.
It's very exciting. I think it's one of those that you feel this is the cautiously optimistic. Well, it's not cautiously optimistic. I'll throw that out. It's the very optimistic time of the year where you think nothing can tear me down until eventually that first week in the URC and we're preseason and you're like, oh, we haven't really changed halfway. But for I'm sure we're going to mention Connacht having Lancaster come in is probably one of the biggest coaching deals for Connacht in recent memory. It's just wild how he could come in, and I'm excited to see how they play because they were an exciting team anyway. But they have had a lot of coaching changes as well with Mark Sexton coming up to us as well. Um, with their attack last season being so entertaining. Hopefully, let's talk about that next week. But seeing Lancaster come in is for like an Irish rugby fans, I'm sure we can all say ourselves, is very exciting to have him back in the sort of setup and then in the fold again.
Yeah, well, we might have hot takes later on the season, but like,
Yeah.
if Stuart Lancaster's next Irish coach, would anyone here be surprised? I don't think so. Do you know? I would not be surprised at all. And Ben, like, it's a great appointment for Connacht on paper, but when you look at how last season went and how it fizzled out so quickly, they had their own coaching kind of rigmarole, for lack of a better term, and Cully Tucker took them for the end of the season when they were already eliminated. It was a messy one. It was a messy season last year for four provinces, really. Leinster in their own way, just because of that Northampton game and the standards they're judged on. But for Connacht in particular, this feels like a big chance, a big chance. And even on an individual basis, as we mentioned earlier discussion, for lads to be like, right, I'm going to beat the door down because I know well Andy Farrell trusts my head coach.
Like it's probably as big a season of Connacht as Connacht have had since they won the Pro 14 URC, and they can't repeat what they did last year. I mean, I looked briefly earlier. They finished 13th in the URC. They had 6 wins, like 12 losses, getting dumped out of the Challenge Cup in the way they did by Racing. Um, as Adam touched on, attackingly, they're probably the best team in the league to watch when they get the ball going. They're wonderful. They score tries. They got the same amount of try bonus points to Bulls in Edinburgh. They got more than Sharks last season. All they do is score tries. And it's
But
the other side of their game where, like, it's kind of they're almost like a best man. They'll get you there. You'll have a wonderful time. And then when they get married themselves, they don't know what to do.
moving on very swiftly from that, the way we're going to work it is we're going to try. I fully convinced you wrote that down earlier on as well.
I didn't. I wish I had.
But the way we're going to do this for all of these, so because we all kind of have split allegiances, not necessarily split 50-50, but split in some capacity, myself and David will do the bulk load for Connacht, and so on and so forth. Next week it'll be Adam and Ben for Ulster. And David, I'm gonna start with you, just your initial thoughts before we get into what was critically acclaimed over the summer with depth chart discussion. But just really quickly, as a Leinster man who likes Connacht, having Stuart Lancaster there, is it bittersweet, or are you proud, or how does that work? Because like, yes, it's great to have him back, but like, I'm sure you'd take him back at Leinster as well if he offered. You're on mute there, David. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I was so ready to not get caught with the millennial pause there. Yeah, so it's yeah, no, I mean, look, I think there was a lot of concern when Lancaster left Leinster to be replaced by Jacques Nienaber. You know, he had us playing this really nice brand of attacking rugby. Nienaber is kind of known for his more attritional nature, and there was a concern that there'd be a dip off in the attack and it wouldn't be balanced. Now obviously we haven't Leinster have not achieved what they wanted to in Europe, but given that they managed to come back and win the URC this year, I don't think there can be too many complaints. To have Stuart Lancaster back in the Irish system, I think is a really great thing. You know, it's always with an eye to the national team. When the provinces are playing good rugby, it tends to matriculate up to the national side. And for a team like Connacht, you know, it's as I think Ben said, like they have such a good attacking instinct. It's just so often hampered by this frailty and you know, kind of getting halfway through a game and slightly slipping up, slightly going to sleep, slightly not being able to maintain it for the full 80. Lancaster is kind of renowned for the training sessions, his three teams of 15 rotating constantly and the intensity and the speed that they go at. You know, there's a lot of Leinster lads who just said the training sessions were harder than the matches were. That's kind of what you want. And if he can get that kind of discipline and that kind of mindset into Connacht, you know, they could at the very least justify what we've seen this squad to be capable of. So from a Leinster point of view, I'm happy to have Lancaster back in the Irish system, full stop. As a part-time Connacht supporter, I'm over the moon. I don't think there, you know, it's been a long-running thing where provinces have struggled to hold on to good coaches or to struggle to hold on to not so good coaches for more than a season. To see someone of that caliber come into the system is I think a great thing. And if he can get out of Connacht what I think they've threatened to have come out of them for a few years, it could be a really good season in Galway.
No, it really could, and we are all very excited for the four provinces, in terms of where they're at as of right now. Ulster we'll get onto a little bit or in more detail next week, but we're going to start with the depth chart stuff. We're going to look at depth chart predicted 23, all that jazz, all the stuff that you became familiar with on that one show over the summer. And David, I'm just going to read this out and I'm going to kind of bounce it off you to start. So, firstly, as you can see, this Connacht squad is a little bit small. You mentioned Stuart Lancaster. This Connacht squad in total, I believe, is 57 players, which in this day and age is relatively small. Yeah, it's 57 players, including academy. If he wants to do the 315s, it's going to be a hell of a lot more difficult. That's the ultimate side of it. But running through that there, strong, one of their largest academy groups ever. Obviously, they got three Lions, three NIQs, multiple Irish caps. Where do you think that Connacht depth chart is as of right now? Do you think it is strong enough for them to kick on, or are you hoping that guys in maybe that third tier or second tier bolt up and they are the difference makers? How would you view it?
Yeah, no, Connacht they're kind of they're unfortunate in some ways in that there are some positions where they have kind of almost test level worth of depth in certain positions and then just quite a degree of frailty in others. The second row, it's almost shocking that Dara Murray is the only one of that lot who's managed to make his way up to Ireland reckoning so far. I think, you know, Niall in the past definitely would have seemed like should have been in that conversation. Joe Joyce coming in, I know he's only been in Connacht for a few years now, but he came in, hit the ground running and was such a force for them that, you know, he kind of made an argument for some kind of involvement there. Josh Murphy obviously took the year out to work on his medical degree too, but would definitely have been in that reckoning too. So when it comes to that position, I think Connacht are in a really strong position. You know, the joke is that scrum half, they have just, you know, particularly from your own hometown, they just have a laughable number of quality players coming out of there. And, you know, Ben Murphy hit the ground running really last year. To the degree that you'd almost forget that he has Caelan Blade behind him, he has Matthew Devine behind him, Colin Morelli is still there. You know, it's those positions you just wouldn't have concern. I think across the Connacht team, the only position that I really have concern for is number 10. Unfortunately, it's quite an important position, but it's you know, Jack Carty, obviously Ireland international, but not necessarily at the peak of his powers for a while now. I think there was even murmurings a few years ago that he was on the edge of retiring and stuck around. because Connacht were in need. Josh Ioane shows a lot of promise, and he played some really great rugby over New Zealand and has played some really good rugby in Connacht. I think there's just a question over whether or not he's got the kind of the steel to be a 10 when he's going backwards as much as he does when he's going forwards. That might be something that Stuart Lancaster can iron out in him and can help him get the best out of. I think if I was in that squad, I'd be keeping an eye on Carl Ford. Even Mac Hansen has played 10. When he was over with the Brumbies, it is a position he's familiar with. Even as a first receiver, it's a position he could jump into. So, I think there's a lot of strength in that Connacht squad. The front row, being bolstered by Jack Ainger, now an Ireland international, Peter Dooley coming over from Leinster. There is a lot of depth there. I think it'd be a great season to watch Dylan Tierney-Martin continue to push on. He's a player who showed a lot of promise at under 20s and has played quite well for Connacht in recent times. Dave Heffernan's he's on something like 212 caps at this stage, so definitely scope for Tierney Martin to step in and maybe make a bit more of a claim there. And the back three, it's always a joke about Connacht that they have this they love an outside back. They do love an outside back. I think it'll be interesting to see who nails down that fullback role, because that's been kind of a rotating position. Mac Hansen has slotted in there a few times last season. Sam Gilbert obviously coming in now. It'll be really interesting to see what he can provide them. There was a lot of excitement when Cordero came in. Obviously, he had that bad injury in his first season, and even in the second season, he never really seemed to show the exactly what he's. We all know he is capable of. So hopefully they can get a bit more out of Gilbert there, because I think particularly with the frailties they have at 10, having a really solid fullback who can step in and help with that kind of job would be really handy for them too. So I think that back row as well, not to gloss over that one. Josh Murphy obviously can play in the second row as well, but he's put in some serious performances in the back row. Cian Prendergast, number 8. I think you said Sean Jansen in their pre-match preseason match against Bristol was notching up the tries. He's going to be pushing for an 8 jersey there. Paul Boyle still very much in the reckoning in that back row, and particularly now being an Irish international too. So there is a lot of depth across that Connacht squad, possibly more than Connacht are used to having. And it's a situation where, if they have to go down to Finn Tracy or Shea Mullins, or they have to go down to, you know, um, as I said, Sean Jansen or Dylan Tierney Martin, or one level to Caelan Blade, Matthew Devine in certain positions, there's not really as much of a drop off as there might have been in seasons gone by. I think it's just that 10 role is one that they're going to have to keep an eye on. And if Joshua Wani can really step up, that'd be great, because I think if they can lock that role down, they're actually doing quite well in a lot of other positions.
And I think that's a really crucial point, David, because you do have this element of like front row is really deep. Now, Hooker, probably there's a bit of a drop off there, but front row is really deep. Their back three, it looks thin on numbers, but like Jennings and Ralston are as good of any, like back three options there anyways. Like, and obviously you have Matt Hansen and Shane Bolton, as we should mention, and Sam Gilbert. Back row is really deep, and like back row, even like Ian McCarthy and Max Flynn were both brilliant at under 20s level. I don't know enough about O'Connell, Power, and O'Brien to comment on them, but like they are deep in some positions, and Ben, like to bring you in here, one of the points there I made was, do Connacht need these guys in that third, fourth, fifth layer to start pushing up? But like they're not that far away either, because you look at like Matthew Devine, Shane Jennings, Sam Elo, and Jordan Duggan, just for example. They've gotten a lot of minutes. They've been there thereabouts before. It's not like Stuart Lancaster has to inherit like two squads, in essential. He doesn't really. It's very well blended. There's a lot of experience even in the young guys, and a lot of talent there, isn't it?
Like you mentioned young guys, Sean Naughton at 10, he did very well to under 20s. He got 2 games for Connacht last year. He genuinely will be pushing Carty this season for that backup 10 shirt. He's excellent. Um, got on the Butler coming through, Sammy Lowe, John Devine, Sean Walsh, Wayne Ralston. Like Connacht have depth most of the way back. Their academy, I don't know a lot of their academy guys are brought up, but talk locally from them is that they're all thereabouts and will be there within a year or two. They're
It's
hoping to
it's
keep
it's probably
most
their
of them in Galway as
strongest,
well.
probably their strongest academy in about 14, 15 years.
Yeah,
Like,
like all of the talk coming out of Galway is they've got their start of 15, they've got a very good bench, and then there's not a lot of gap between bench and lads behind them coming through.
mhm.
I
Yeah.
yeah, I don't like saying it from much point of view, but I'm a tad bit worried about Connacht this season. Um,
There's a bit of underdog about them, I feel, isn't there? Like
there's a bit of
not in the
underdog,
like
and then you're
traditional,
putting
but
Lancaster on top of it. Who
mm,
like Lancaster's? I know he had a poor time at Racing, but legitimately he's one of the best coaches in the world.
yeah.
Him and Liam made magic at Leinster. You're giving him a young squad, you're giving him an experienced squad built around internationals, and now Tess Lyons on top of it.
Mm. And
Not a
A
there's
lot to
lot
be
of
overly
some
people have
concerned
a
about.
lot of people have a hard time at wrestling as well. I think there's if there's one
yeah,
team you'd
that's
want to
Yeah,
true.
come out of and not get the blame for it, wrestling is probably the
Yeah,
one.
the only one who seemed to thrive there was Finn Russell in recent years. Do you know, which really kind of says something. But we're not the top 14 podcast or anything like that. I understand, but it is a good point. Like people may look at Lancaster like maybe he's just gone past his
And
day,
like
but at the same time, like arguably that best Leinster team of his era was 2023 in his last season. Do you know, like they were unbelievable that final season he was there at Leinster.
like
So it's
it's
very
easy
hard
to
to point
look at
at.
that Connacht team and say they find depth in actual experienced starting URC depth isn't great,
Mm.
but they have four or five in each position. They have injury cover. They have players who, if you get them training and get them minutes through Six Nations, get them minutes in the lesser URC games, they'll be
Hmm.
fine in a year's time. Like
Yeah, no,
no issue
absolutely.
whatsoever if they keep half those players tied down.
Absolutely. And like Adam, just to kind of bring you in here for a second, like that we're all very familiar with the kind of 25 to 30 of the starting kind of core. Granted, Sam Gilbert is new to the scene at fullback, but we're all very familiar with that. And there is like there's players there, like obviously Jack Carthy and Keane Blade have never let Connacht down before. Jack Ainger is Ireland capped. He's a great backup. Ford and Hawkshaw. Like as Ben was saying, they are building depth slowly but surely, but they're very much building depth.
oh yeah, they've got their talisman. Like there's one that I want to like mention, and that is Dennis Buckley and how he's never had an Ireland cap. It's,
Yeah,
he always seems to like he's always just there at Connacht, and like he always just seems to cause us problems every year. Even since I was like about 10 years old, and I'm 23 now, and I'm still seeing him on a depth chart. But yeah, there is a lot to be excited about Connacht, and I think, as you said, like. The essence of the Connacht underdog pluckiness is back. And Hugh Gavin was very exciting in the summer. He was very exciting in the summer when he played against it. Granted, it was Portugal, but he was like he was looking for ball. Having Bundyaki beside him as well. How many times they will play this season, we don't know with the Ireland internationals, injuries, etc. But you can just imagine Hugh Gavin developing into this incredible player that could push for the Ireland v Japan. It's very ironic because I'm wearing the Japan kit at the minute. The Ireland v Japan game in November, maybe pushing for that Six Nations squad as well. There is a lot to be excited about this Connacht team. And Sam Gilbert is also like the reaction around that from New Zealand was kind of like one of sort of shock. They didn't really know about him going. So as we said, like I found it interesting when David mentioned, and I really want to see this happen. And if it does happen, I feel like I need to do something. If Mac Hansen plays 10 for Connacht, I will, I don't know, get him tattooed on my leg. No, I'm joking.
There's one for the comment section. Give us a forfeit for Adam if Mac Hansen starts a big game or starts any game at 10. There, like, there we go. You've put it into the ether. Like you've
So
done this on yourself. But even
Lancaster's just gonna be like, he's in for it.
he's going to be watching this because all coaches watch everything as
Yeah.
we like it's the worst cliche is like, oh, they don't pay attention. They do. But I kind of lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, what I was going to say was it's testament to Connacht and their evolution that like we didn't start the conversation on Hugh Gavin. We didn't start the conversation on Matthew Devine. I know Ben Murphy got an early mention from David as he was kind of going down through the team. But like in years gone by, that guy would have been the first person we talk about. And I think that speaks to it. Like John Devine had a great 20s year, Matthew Devine had a great 20s year. You know, like Max Flynn was great at 20s. Owen de Butler has been brilliant in recent years. Like lads in that kind of age bracket have all been very, very good in recent years. And one thing we're going to look at as well this season is kind of the fixture component and how it breaks down. And Ben, I'm going to kind of throw it to you first. Actually, just give me 2 seconds because my screen is on the next section, which will be with gaping eyes and great for YouTube because we're going to talk about jerseys. But firstly, Ben, I want to show you Connacht's fixtures and how they kind of break down. So I understand this is a great podcast, but we've divided to four blocks. They've got Benetton Scarlets, Cardiff Bulls, Munster Sharks to start. Then you kind of have your European games scattered in the middle and whatever, with where they have Ospreys, Black Lion, Montpellier, Montauban. But Ben, you look at those first five, six games for Connacht, and if they look very well drilled against Bristol in pre-season last week, which we're meant to believe, they have six targetable games.
Yeah, like you're definitively targeting those first three. You're saying
Yeah.
those are three wins. If we get our system functioning, we can get there's 50 impossible points on offer there. Bulls coming up, you'd probably take losing bonus point and be happy enough. And like if you're coming, that's
Depends
down
what
to
Bulls
Munster.
turn up.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if you're coming down to Munster with between 13 and 16 points coming into Thomond Park in a game you haven't been afraid of for about a decade,
Yeah, it's a very different
you're looking at
conversation,
it from
isn't it?
end of start to the season. Like, what caught my eye earlier is block two and block three. They have Leinster sandwiching Europe. It's
Mm,
Ulster, Leinster, Europe, Europe, Leinster.
yeah.
Which, in terms of a 5 game block that's potentially season defining, is about as worrying as you can get.
Is it? And
I,
I'm not
I,
going to try and pluck at you for that one, but is there almost an element in the URC at the moment that teams just so much don't focus on Leinster? And understand it's different when it's an
yes,
interpro, but could you also look at it and be like, look, which is more important, Montpellier or Dublin? You're saying Montpellier,
you're
like,
saying Montpellier, but
Yeah.
momentum-wise, you don't want to go. I'm not sure if that's Ravenhill. Possibly is. You don't want to go Ulster, Leinster, 2 games, didn't win last year, either one.
yeah. Connacht
You
went 0 from
then
6 in interpros last year, so it's a very
zero from
important discussion,
six.
that part.
You
Yeah.
then
Yeah,
have to
that
go and
game's
play two
that's a home
European
game, so
games. Sorry,
Go on, David.
that's a home game. The round of eight.
The Ulster
That's
one.
in Galway. Yeah.
so it's Ulster
Okay.
and Galway. Then you've Leinster.
Leinster away, then Galway in January,
I I
which isn't too bad because then if they do have if they've Leinster the week before Six Nations, then you got Zebra, Glasgow during Six Nations, Ulster the other side of it.
Yeah,
That's actually not too bad then again, isn't it not?
no, like they'll pick up points in block three. They'll pick up a lot of points in block one. Their South Africa tour is timed really well, where they'll know where they are at that point.
Yeah,
And then Munster, presumably in Castlebar again towards the
you
end of the
would
season.
assume so. Unless Pearse Stadium, which is such an
Or Pierce
easy place
Stadium.
to get in and out of, as anyone who's ever been there would know. But yeah, it's set up nicely, and David, like on that, like you don't want to be putting too much pressure on a team to start the season strong. But you look at Connacht's first 4 or 5 games, and when they hit that November block or the November window, you're probably thinking at that stage you're going to know where Connacht are at. Even though, yes, they'll be without Lions for some of those games and Ireland internationals for maybe the Benetton game, we're going to know what Connacht we're dealing with this season by the time we hit November.
Yeah, we should do. It is kind of a tricky one for Connacht in that like there's definitely games they'll want to pick up points in. You know, they're matches that they won't want to ship any in. Just because there's games that they won't fancy as much. But yeah, I think like look, a strong start is never going to be a harm to them. I actually don't know off the top of my head how Benetton tend to do at the start of the season, but having those first 2 games at home is a nice way to start off. Going away to Cardiff, not a bad place to go. The Bulls, it is hard to know how they'll be that early in the season. But in Galway is when you'd fancy their chances causing trouble. So like I think the thing for Connacht is consistency. Like there's games they can target and they should definitely pick up points, but it's they want to be in the mix for as much of it as they can. I don't know that even from a mentality point of view, and I think Stuart Lancaster will hopefully bring this to them, that they want to be going into any game not really trying to win it because I think there's really a really small number of games that they can't win. Even Leinster have gone down to Galway and won in like the last play. Thinking Kieran Frawley like scoring a try in like the 75th minute to win a match. There's very few games that they should be not at least not going out there with going, we don't have a 50-50 shot, but we have at least a 40 or 30% shot here. We need to take the shot. So I think if they start strong and then just keep their heads above water from there, um that's a very laudable goal. I think, keeping themselves in the mix for as long. That was the most exciting thing with the URC this season, was it right up to the last weekends. Nobody knew exactly who was going to be in that top eight. So I think if they can keep their heads up in the URC, that's a real positive. And I would really like to see him. It's been consistent disappointment over the years to see them not really put the dent in the Challenge Cup that they should be able to do. But I think if they, with the depth they have, I think they're definitely in a position to compete. Even with the players they will lose to the test matches, they should be really in a position to compete in both of those tournaments, at least in the first half of the season.
Yeah, and that's going to be a really interesting thing to watch. But another interesting thing that we're going to touch on all, well, maybe not all season, but all month is jersey chat because this may be one of the strongest years of jerseys going. And Adam, as you're donning the 2015 Japan kit, which I'm hoping you didn't buy in 2015 because then I'd be wondering how it still fits you. But I'm going to get your opinion on these Connacht kits. And again, apologies for all your listeners, but we are on YouTube. That is our main platform, and we do encourage that you go check us out on there. But I will just flick this over, and again, I do have this issue sometimes. Sorry, guys. We're going to start with this one, the home kit, Adam. Green, gold, classy, slick. Probably a few too many sponsors, but this is good.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a really nice jersey with a bit too many sponsors. That's like the way it goes. I think it's such a lovely, clean jersey as well. It's that Connacht green. It well, not necessarily Connacht green in terms of how it is, but it's how they distinguish themselves from like the Ireland jerseys we were discussing on it before the podcast. But I think it's nice. It's classy. It also the collar as well is very nice. I think rugby jersey collars are a massive topic that everyone sort of goes straight to. A good nice collar does the world a good on a jersey as well. But yeah, I think it's a lovely jersey. It's one of the stronger out of the provinces this year. I'm sure we'll get on to the strongest, which will be in a couple of weeks' time. I'm not saying that next week's is going to be necessarily strong at all, but this is like one, two, like either like probably the strongest or the second strongest. I'd say the second strongest one out of the provinces this year that they brought out.
No, it's very good. And the away kit isn't bad either. Now, I may have got a text from another person in here to use a high resolution image, but you know what? We might just share them on social media. But the away one, Ben, you're going to understand this reference. The away one kind of looks like a ULGA jersey. Would you
Yeah, it's
agree
a
with
Wolves
that?
jersey. It's very much a Wolves jersey with Genesis across the middle of it.
Okay,
But
I'm not the only one who sees that,
and
so
that's
at
not
least
necessarily a bad thing. As Adam said,
no.
the collar is excellent.
But
It,
we have another one that we're going to
yeah,
jump into, which is
yeah.
this absolute beauty. Adam, I'll let you go first. This
Uh,
is this is good.
it, it's something that like I think for my province we should really look into. But like see the heritage jerseys like this is our class. I think um not only for a collector of so many rugby shirts like myself, like having easy to get retro almost remakes, not necessarily like a big remake, but like retro remakes are so good to get because some of the kits that you may find are so difficult. This one that I found myself that I'm wearing right now, it was difficult to find. Just found it on eBay. But like it's one of those that it's perfect. Long sleeves as well, perfect for that Galway wind. Perfect for the Galway weather. But yeah, I think it's nice. It's clean. No sponsors as well. Makes it lovely.
Yeah, it's very good. I'm just going to bring it back into the room for a second. David, I'll let you go first. What do you think out of 10 Connacht's three jerseys this year? And remember, you are on mute. All right, there we go.
Oh, Connacht are like it's the annoying, well, not the annoying thing. Annoying thing is a supporter of a different team, but Connacht just knocked it out of the park with some of their jerseys, and I think that home kit with the green and gold is just really gorgeous. White's a bit plain, but the heritage jersey brings it back. So I think this is an easy 9 out of 10 for Connacht. It's a consistent source of strength for them, but their jerseys are tend to be class, and this year isn't really any different.
Ben, I'll let you go out of 10, out of 15, whatever number.
Yeah, if it's 7 or an 8. I think the heritage makes up for the away jersey being plain. The heritage jersey is just
Oh,
excellent.
that's fair. Adam, I'll let you
Uh,
go.
to quote Homer, stupid, sexy Flanders. You know, I'd say like a 9 out of 10.
Stupid,
It
sexy,
was, I
handsome.
think, well, yeah. Um,
At producer Lee G, would you mind just like throwing that into the thumbnail? Actually, no, that's Hugh Griffin's work. Would you mind just throwing it into the thumbnail for us? That'd be great. But we're gonna kind of come back around to the on-field action, having been gone all the way to Springfield there for a minute. And we're going to just predict a Connacht 23. Myself and David have kind of ran through this, so this is going to be how we do it for the coming weeks. So, David, I'm going to let you actually, I'll read out the 1 to 23 and I'll let you go through it then and analyze it first. So, we've got Dennis Buckley, Dave Heffernan, Finlay Beedham, Joe Joyce, Darren Murray, Keane Prendergast, Seamus Hurley Langton, Sean Jansen, Ben Murphy, Joshua Wane, Shane Bolton, Bundy Aki, Hugh Gavin, Mac Hansen, Sam Gilbert, although we are waiting on him to arrive after the end of NPC Championship, and Dylan Tierney Martin, Peter Dooley, Jack Ainger, Josh Murphy, Paul Boyle, Matthew Devine, Carl Ford, Finn Tracy. David, your thoughts on this Connacht 23, what you'd change, or what way would you go, and why we came to this kind of this mold?
Yeah, no, it's a fairly solid opening. I think it'll probably be how it looks at the start of the season, with an eye to how how many years Dennis Buckley has been playing this trade. I wouldn't be surprised to see him starting the year as the first choice, Lou said, but I also wouldn't be surprised to see him finish the season not necessarily as first choice. I think
Mhm.
Peter Dooley is could bring a lot to that position there. It's kind of weird because Finney Bealham obviously is a test lion now, or sorry, not is a lion now. Jack Ainger just got an Ireland cap, but Sam Illo has been putting in some serious yards there. So I think even with Ainger's elevation to Ireland cap over the summer, I think Sam could put in a serious um, argument for selection at 18, and like tight head prop is not a bad place to have a three-man depth like that. Um, I do think that, yeah, Sean Jansen apparently went quite well in pre-season, but I still think Josh Murphy at his competitive or his combative best. I think I might have him in my starting back row, so I might push him to six, Prendergast to eight, and then Jansen to the bench. But that's also subject to kind of rotation. And then Cathal Ford, I think if it wasn't for the fact that Hugh Gavin had been going quite well, I still think Cathal Ford is a real pusher for I think he might end up falling into a kind of a Jamie Osborne role where he's so flexible that he might end up on bench more often than he should, because I think that's a guy who should really be starting more games. But other than that, I don't really have any major issues with that, except that yeah, there's some lads on that bench that I think I would have starting more often. And like that 9-year-old Ben Murphy starting there, Matthew Devine before Ben Murphy showed up was easily pushing for that jersey, and I think it'll be a fair old tussle between those two. And I think by the end of the season, I could see Jack Carty possibly starting almost as many games as Joshua Annie. But there's no harm in that either. So I think it's a relatively solid team you've got there.
Very
But I
very
I do
flexible team at the moment, isn't
it's
it?
a, it
Like
is a
you
very
can,
flexible team, which also is no bad thing,
yeah,
styles make fights, and I think if Lancaster has the ability to rotate when he needs to, I don't think that's a bad one either. So yeah, few changes here and there, but that's like as the 23 goes, like that's not a 23 you'd ever take for granted, or not put out your own strongest 23 as an opposition side to go up against.
yeah.
And I think that's a great thing. It'd be very interesting to see how Bundy Aki goes as well, because he's been such a stalwart for Connacht. But and I can say myself being in a similar saddle, he's getting up there in years, and um, Lions tour test matches, it does start to take it out of the body. So it might be a case that Hugh Gavin and Carl Ford are starting more games alongside each other, depending on how the season goes for Bundy. But certainly while he's fit, he's obviously going to start.
Yeah, definitely. And Ben, just to kind of to get your kind of view on it, like it feels like right now, and yes, this is based on a first choice Connacht 23 and everyone being fit and so on and so forth. They're in a really, really healthy position. And that's where you look at those first few games where more than likely the only players they're going to be without are Beelum, where they have Ainger, Aki, where they have Ford, and Mac Hansen, where they have the likes of Finn Tracy or Shane Jennings. Like the positions where they have their strongest talent who will miss a few games at the start of the season is probably their deepest positions. And that's why we're looking at this and going, that Connacht team, they can beat Benetton, they can beat Scarlets, they can beat Cardiff.
That Connacht 23 can beat any team in the league, genuinely. Um, like fine, they've lost Bundyaki, but how often do they really have Bundyaki for a URC game? Anyway, yes, he's in there starting 23, fine. But they have him for what, 5, 6 URC games a year, give or take. Mac Hansen the same. You bring in forward. Tracy's going to see games. Hawkshaw's going to see a lot of games this season as well. Um, like again, I said it earlier, but there's that Munster game 5. You're looking at as a Munster fan saying there's actually a lot to be concerned about there.
And like Munster coming in with a new coach of their own, and we'll get onto them in about a
Yeah,
fortnight's time.
it's
It does feel like, and I just can't shake it. The more I look at those fixtures, we will know an awful lot about Connacht in the first month. Like that's the
yeah,
thing.
and that's Connacht every year. We come in. I think if we did this any season, we'd look in September, August, and say Connacht should do really well. They've got a nice opening start to the season. Can see them picking up a couple of wins, and then they do really well in Thomond Park. They do really well in Ravenhill, and then the other games, Connacht, in the least derogatory way possible, do a Connacht,
Mhm.
where they drop points where they shouldn't,
I,
um,
uh,
with all the talent in
Adam,
the world.
Adam,
I
come in there.
almost feel like when we're speaking about Connacht, I see them this season. Yeah, we'll know a lot about them in a month, but I see because they went 0-6 in Interpros last year, I can see them winning like two at least. Like I can see them even getting like one definitely at home and then a shock away. They always get a shock away one. Like it's the Connacht way. Whether that's going to affect them drastically in the league, we don't know, but they always show up for those type of games. They always do have that fight and passion, no matter where they are in that league. It's just interesting to see how much they're going to try and fill in for the Challenge Cup, I'd say, and
Mhm.
how that can stretch their squad in a way.
It'd be interesting to see how they use that as well, because it would be some people would have the opinion of just focus on the league, get back into the Champions Cup. That's where your bread is buttered and your money is made. And like Connacht could very easily go on a run. So they're kind of in that middle ground where it's like, don't bit it off, but also don't focus on it entirely. And that's something they're going to have to contend with. But as we kind of head into the kind of last couple of minutes and whatever on this show, I want to get predictions from everyone. Um, and we're going to do this for each and every show and each and every province, as you'd imagine. You can't just look ahead to the season and go, yeah, I think they'll be fine, and just leave it at that. I have to hold you to your word. Um, Ben, I'll start with yourself. Player to watch for Connacht, and please, for the love of God, don't make it be too obvious. And this goes for every single one of these that we do for the remainder of the month.
Matthew Devine.
Okay, you're going to have to explain your reasons. Go on.
I think Devine will get over Blade before Christmas. I think he will have a great run during the Six Nations window. I think he will be pushing for that third Irish 9 jersey. He's not going to get up Ben Murphy, in my opinion, but I think he certainly will get enough games to get him in contention to start the season after. Um, I thought Magic Devine should have more games last year, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Yeah, and there's a reason why he was linked with a move away, and it's
Yeah,
because
Yeah.
it did, like a lot of people felt
like
like he didn't get enough games.
if he doesn't get over Quillen Bed last year, there's probably a 9 slot opening up down south. He's more than welcome to come and take.
Well, look,
Uh,
without
there's
punching or anything like that, like there's probably a ninth slot in all four provinces, or
Have a
like
day.
three of the provinces. I think
yeah.
Connacht is the
Uh,
safest at the moment, if I'm
Yeah.
honest. Do you know? But David, I'll come to you. Your player to watch of Connacht, and you can do two players, three players,
Oh, I
not
can do two players.
35 or anything like that, but
You're giving
whatever
him a
you
cop
want.
out.
Okay. I appreciate that. I was gonna go for two players anyway, so I'm glad I've got sign off. I'm gonna go. Oh, this is gonna draw a bad comparison now because these are both. I think they're both former Leinster players.
Jesus.
But
God.
I'm gonna go one forward and one back. I mentioned him before in the depth chart, but I think Samuel at tight head. He played. I think he had about. He had. I was well over 10 caps for Connacht last season. I think he's settled in great there, down there in Galway. I think he's got. It's a great position to have depth in because you're always going to have two tight heads in every match day squad. With Bealham being Jack Angel being an Irish international as well, but Bealham obviously being in most Ireland squads and having been on the Lions tour, it's no harm to have extra depth there. But I think if he goes the way if he continues the form he showed last season, it could be a really good one for him. And in the backs. I don't know why I didn't mention him when we were talking about tens, but David Hawkshaw plays, um, 12. He plays 10. He's a very, very good player. He brings a lot of zip. I think he's had his ups and his downs with injury. If he can straighten that out I think he could be a really important part of that Connacht back line. Particularly if someone like Bundy Aki is away, particularly if Josh Ioane and Jack Carthy are showing any kind of frailty, I think he could be a really important part of that back line.
Definitely. David Hawkshaw, who of course is the brother of the Ireland women's hockey captain, Sarah Hawkshaw. I think she's captain, I'm not 100% sure.
Talented
Adam,
family.
your
There's
own
another brother in that film as well, isn't
there
there? I think there's another one,
is, I think so.
It's
Yeah.
the
yeah.
national 10-pin bowling champion.
I don't
I'm
know
joking.
about that now, but anyways, hockey is big in certain parts, not in my neck of the
Yeah,
woods,
there
but
is.
it
Yeah,
is in certain parts.
yeah.
Adam, you're kind of have you any player to watch for Connacht
Uh,
this season?
I really like Che Mullins. I think he's one of the Connacht speedy backs that I really enjoy watching. I really enjoyed watching him play sevens as well. So he was one of those names that stuck out to me in that depth chart that I was just like, he is class and he's quick and he's speedy and it's just so Connacht to have a speedy back like Che Mullins. He can cut through defenses as well. So it'd be either him or I'll pick a really obvious one in Hugh Gavin, and the fact that I really like watching Hugh Gavin play. I think my eyes being open to him over the Ireland tour and going, yeah, you just put a big center next to him and he can do the rest of the creativity, the lovely stuff. But he could also be a big center as well because he's what 6'2" and 104 kilos. But he does all the creativity stuff well. Like it's gonna be his, as I said before, his season to kick on for Ireland, I reckon.
I can't dispute any of those. If I was to go with one myself, and I probably should have had this ready for myself, I also didn't have it ready for you. So I suppose either way, I'd probably go with. I'd go with Sean Jansen, to be honest. I think he's the big, powerful specimen the Connacht have been crying out for quite some time at that number eight role. I don't think it would be unfair to say that there's a chance that a back rower can burst into that Ireland squad, as competitive as it is. But as they kind of regenerate and evolve and all that, I think we could potentially see him bursting on through. Um, we'll couple these two predictions together. David, I'll start with yourself. URC and Europe. You can go into a little bit more depth because obviously you're kind of taking the lead on this as will I. But your eventual URC and European prediction for Connacht.
I think with this squad in which you're Lancaster leading it, that Connacht should be they'll be top eight in the URC. I don't know if they'll go higher than fifth, but I'd say they could reasonably aim for sixth or seventh. And I would like to see them get to at least I'm going to say at least a quarterfinal, but realistically, I'd like to see them get to a semi-final in the Challenge Cup.
I don't dispute that, to be honest. Adam, what would you be saying for URC
Uh,
and Challenge Cup?
Sixth for URC and Challenge Cup. I want to see um us against the lads from the West in Bilbao because I'd say that'd be amazing crack. Like an all Irish challenge cup final. So I know, but it's one of those that I think with how the provinces were set out last year and two of the provinces being in the Challenge Cup, I do think it's of massive importance for us to show our strength in that. And I think Connacht need to show their strength in it. And I think, well, we're going to say next week about Ulster, but I feel like we need to show our strength in that competition and not just get walked over. And I still think Connacht can still get sixth with that. So, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. The more I look at it, the more I'm like, I will give a fairly safe prediction at November, but I just
Yeah.
don't know how those first few games are going to go. As of right now, I do think to use an NFL parlance, a 500 season. If they went 8-8 or 9-9 in the league, I don't think that would be a bad return. The Interpros are tricky because obviously you have to play Leinster twice, you have to play Munster twice, you have to play Ulster twice. Like that's a lot different to playing, Dragons, Ospreys,
Mhm.
or Zebra and Bennett and whoever. But yeah, I don't see any reason why Connacht can't get to 8 wins at the very least, or 9 wins. And then at that stage, you're down to bonus points. And it's, can you turn over Edinburgh, for example, be another team in that reckoning? Scarlets, you'd imagine Benetton, teams like that, the Lions, they're your swing games then. And it'll be interesting. And Challenge Cup, I should say. For me, again, I'd probably be leaning towards quarterfinals, semi-finals potentially. Don't put all your eggs in that basket would be my only thing. And I don't think Stuart Lancaster will, to be honest with you. I think he will look at that URC. And again, by the time they play their first game, they will have a fairly good idea where they're at in the URC because they'll be a third of the way through the season as well as that. So yeah, Ben, yourself.
So they should have made a Challenge Cup semi-final last year. They had the beating of Racing in that game, and they let it slip away from them.
Yeah.
Challenge Cup semi-final this year should be minimum aim, and it's very achievable. If they avoid Ulster, they'll make the final. They should. They are that good. URC, I'm more pessimistic. I think they'll scrape 8. Just I I said this earlier, but it all comes down to those first 6 games. If Connacht win 4 of them, great. But they're just as likely to slip up against Bennett in round 1 and have that go against them for the full first month of the season. I'd love to say they'll get 5th. I've been burnt so many times with Connacht.
That's the thing. It is hard to judge. And like just to your point on Challenge Cup, like for me, Exeter, um, the what you call it, Exeter, Racing, Ulster, they're probably the only three teams they can fear. Stats front say if they go all the distance, yeah, fair enough. You have to play them. They will take it for granted. They will go for it then. But that's it. Four teams that you have to fear. Compare that to the URC where there's three provinces you have to fear in some regard.
I,
Do you
I,
know?
I think it's being a fan of one of those, like we would probably most fear Connacht because we face the two that you mentioned in our group stage.
Mm.
I think Connacht's one of those ones that I would probably fear the most in the Challenge Cup if we got them on a quarterfinal stage in Galway or even in Belfast, like they proved themselves in Belfast before. They've proved it multiple times now. I was there in their first win since 1971-ish or something like that when Bundyaki went through, and that was a breaking point for me where Connacht weren't always the weakest province. Like they won the Pro 14 before then and stuff like that, but it was almost like they went for it and went for it again. Do you know what I mean? Like they
Yeah.
push for these interpros, and having them in a European interpro, there'd be another animal. Like, they did play Leinster. Was it, I don't know how many years ago. Was that last season or was it 2 seasons ago?
2 to 3 years ago that they played Leinster.
Yeah.
2022,
But
2023, I
Yeah,
think it
because
was.
it was
yeah,
back when we were doing the back-to-back round of 16 games.
Oh, 20,
yeah, but
21, 22. So,
you
jeez,
know,
it's a while
you
ago.
you see like there was fight in them. Do you know what I mean? Like
But they
you can
almost won
never.
the home leg of that game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like they're capable of beating any team in that league, as Ben said. They are. It's just whether they can go the extra mile, whether they have. It's impossible to minimize injuries, but it's about handling that and using that
Mm.
wealth of academy that they have as well.
Yeah.
And there's an important note on that. I think Stuart Lancaster raises their ceiling as
Yeah,
well as raising their floor. Like it's very hard
100%.
to say that Stuart Lancaster team will be as temperamental and as up and down because we've never seen that from his teams. Yeah, okay, fair enough, Racing, so on and so forth. But like realistically, we didn't. He had one of the most consistent England teams. He had an extremely consistent Leinster team. You'd imagine he raises both. It's just because that first 6 games has 6 individually winnable games that you just wonder if you fall behind the 8 ball in the URC. Yes, it's not that hard to get back up. We've seen in recent years, but because of the way their fixtures are, it actually is for them, and that's
I,
that's the balancing act, isn't it? It's just hard to know which
That's a
way.
it,
lot of my point on their Europe thing. Like Connacht, let's say that start of URC doesn't go very well. They
Mm,
then can look and say, we can, in a very realistic way, win this Challenge Cup and still get into the Champions Cup regardless. So you
yeah.
could see a point in January where, fine, they're 9th or 10th in the URC. It's realistic. They then go into January and say, right, we're winning this. Lancaster could well say, we'll win the Interpros, fine, but our priority now is get to Bilbao. And I
Mhm.
wouldn't be overly shocked.
Yeah,
I,
and I could
I,
definitely see it, and they have the ability, don't they?
You're in the Challenge
I,
Cup regardless next season, no matter
Yeah.
what you do. So
I, I I think like the four provinces and what we're going to find in these podcasts, this one being the start, is probably a sense of cautious optimism. Like I think that's something like especially I don't think last year we had for the four provinces. Um, or did
No,
we? I don't
no,
remember.
we
Cut
all
me
remember
on
how that
those.
went.
But the thing is, like I think there is. route to be optimistic for this Connacht team. As you said, like Stuart Lancaster, I think a lot of Ireland's play from that Andy Farrell handbook, he probably learned from Stuart Lancaster himself in that sort of
Mhm.
2013,
He
2015 window.
he 100% did that. That was Andy Farrell's Ireland. Their basic principles are based out of 20 to
Lancaster.
2020's Leinster. Like it
Yeah.
is, and it's not the entire game plan because they've shifted and they have changed, but the base point of it all comes from there. Do you know? And
Yeah.
that's the thing about it. But like, yeah, I just find with Connacht season, it's just like this could be really good, or it could feel like a lost one, and you don't know which one it's going to be. I think it's kind of funny, and Ben, you can cover your ears for this if you have to, but like the fact that we could have a game in January where Connacht are taking on Montauban, and you're like, oh, this is handy. But I remember a team who used to think that when Munster took on Montauban all those years
I was in
ago.
the South Terrace for that game. The only time I've ever been in the South Terrace, and I've never gone back. It
That's a
was
good reason.
awful.
And that's the thing though as well. Like the URC is good for this, but in particular the Champions Cup is good or the European competitions is oh we should get a result here. But like Connacht have learned the hard way. They've lost to Benetton. They lost a game to Racing they should have won. They lost to Newcastle a couple of years ago. They've been in these European games where they should be winning. And again, that is a point where you look at Lancaster and you're like, if he's the one giving that speech with 40 minutes to go, you've a little bit more trust in him. And he's been there. And if he's telling you you can get over the line, you can get over the line. And his basic principles are going to be strong enough. It's just wait and see. And obviously, like we are a couple of weeks out from the start of the season yet, but they have the ability. They have the ability. That's the thing. David, I'll come to you. A closing word on Connacht's season as we kick off September by looking ahead.
Yeah, I think it's in a way it's not a bad position to be coming out of, failing to get in the top eight for the URC last season, failing to make that much of a dent in the Challenge Cup. You only have upwards to go from here, and with a fresh coach in there, um, to lift them and inspire them. I don't think Connacht have ever been lacking on hard. It was a frustration of Andy Friends in seasons gone by that Connacht could raise their level for interpros and then drop off in games that they really should have been up for. Stuart Lancaster will make sure that they never drop off below a certain level because his standards just don't allow for people to drop below a certain level. And if he can do that for Connacht, then I think they can do something. They will whatever they achieve at the end of the next season. I don't think they'll look back with many regrets.
And you have to hope so. And if that's how we start this month of previews, then it's a good place to start from. But gents, we'll leave it at that for tonight. We'll be back next week as attention turns to Ulster and what Richie Murphy can do as he comes into his second full season, his third kind of term in charge, as well as our usual Rugby World Cup coverage, of course. And if you missed our episode from earlier in the week, we did do a full deep dive on the Rugby World Cup so far. So make sure to check that out. Elsewhere, if you are on YouTube, like, subscribe, give us a suggestion for what Adam's bet should be if Mac Hansen starts at 10. Give us your predictions for Connacht for the season, especially Connacht fans. We'd love to hear from you as well. And as always, Lee G will be in the comment sections. He does not represent us, but sometimes he also does. So pick your poison on that one. But for me, from all the lads on this very exciting evening where we're talking about, the URC coming back. Until next time, thanks very much and Ihoa.